Hello, hi everyone. Welcome to Central Park. Happy spring. My name is Ian. I work with the Central Park Conservancy, the nonprofit that manages Central Park. And we recognize that many people can't make it to Central Park right now. So we're bringing the park to you through our series of weekly walks every Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. You can join us for a lunchtime stroll through the park. And it's 60 degrees Fahrenheit right now in Central Park. So get on a light jacket. It's the perfect weather for taking a stroll to the lovely strawberry fields landscape. We'll be together for about 15 minutes. Once I'm done with all this housekeeping, the walk will be about 15 minutes. And all the photos you'll see were taken by myself just a few days ago. So we're seeing the park as it is right now. And it's really coming to life with color and people and energy. So it's such a great time to visit the park. So thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Our mission at the Conservancy is to preserve and celebrate Central Park as a sanctuary from the pace and pressures of city life, enhancing the enjoyment and well-being of all. So wherever you're tuning in from, I hope that this is a nice break in the middle of your day, and I hope that this walk does enhance your enjoyment of Central Park and really any outdoor space that might be around you that you have access to. So thank you once again for joining. And before we jump in to the walk, just a little bit of housekeeping. If you haven't used Zoom before, there are a few features you can utilize. There is a chat feature you can use to say hello, or maybe you want to give a greeting from where you're from. And you can also look out in the chat feature for some messages from my colleagues, Juan and Jose. They are going to drop some links for upcoming programs. We have a few they'll mention, but I definitely want to highlight the Cherry Blossoms virtual tour next Wednesday. We're doing this on 4 different dates in case you can't make next Wednesday, but it's a tour of the Cherry Blossoms around the reservoir in Central Park. And then on Thursday, the April 15th, the day after that, we have a spring tree walk as well. So check those out. And in case you're confused about who I am, you may have seen Jose last week, and Ryan also does these walks as well. So we kind of take turns doing these. And you can also see a Q&A feature on the little Zoom control bar that pops up. You can put questions you have for Juan or Jose in there. They'll do their best to answer those. And then lastly, there's a poll feature. In a little bit, I'm going to turn on a poll, and you'll see that pop up on your screen if you'd like to participate in that. I think that's everything, but if I missed anything, please chime in the chat. But without further ado, let's get into the park. Once again, it's so nice out right now, and you have to imagine we're teleporting to Central Park West, and we're going to hear some cars beeping and driving by, but very shortly that's going to fall away, and we're going to hear birds and people chattering, just enjoying nature. And you can see Central Park on the left side of your screen here. I've outlined strawberry fields in this blue square. It's in around the southern end of the park, I'd say, on the west side, just a short walk from the residential neighborhood of the Upper West Side, or right off the subway if that's how you're getting here. And you can see the teardrop shaped landscape in a bit more detail here. It's 2.5 acres, and the gray line denotes the drive. So that's mainly used by bicyclists or joggers, or once in a while like a park vehicle. The white lines are pedestrian paths, and then this darker green line is the bridle path. So it's a bustling area, and you can see this same spot illustrated. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead here, but we're actually going to see our walk today. And it's a little confusing, this route. We're gonna loop around the southern meadow and then walk up to this northern meadow to end the tour. If you do, I know some people actually have access to the park and they come and do these walks afterwards. So apologies if it's a little confusing to follow. You can always what I usually do when I go to the park is just walk around and follow what catches my eye. So that's also an option. But I hope this helps maybe give you some ideas. And what I was getting at before, when I was jumping ahead, is actually that if you remember how I described this area, this teardrop shape surrounded by the drive and pedestrian paths and a bridle path, on this map from 1873 that I accessed from the New York Public Library, you can see it's largely the same. The design in this area has stayed true. It's just been redesigned. Actually, in the 1980s, shortly after the Conservancy was formed, this was one of the first landscapes that was redesigned and fixed up. And I actually went into this story in some detail the last time I visited Strawberry Fields with you all back in August. And so I brought up a picture of the Dakota here to kind of represent the story of Strawberry Fields, which of course began in tragedy, the horrible story of John Lennon being killed right outside of this building here, but his family and Yoko Ono, his wife, raising a lot of money to help create this memorial in his memory, but also kind of reinvigorate this area of the park, bring it back to life, and make it a garden of peace for everyone to enjoy. So the main thing to remember is that that happened in 1980, the horrible tragedy, and then by 1985, this area was dedicated as Strawberry Fields. But if you want to learn more about that history specifically, my colleagues will drop a link to the YouTube video from back in August. Today, I wanted to focus on the spring season because there are flowers and birds everywhere, and I just kind of wanted to focus on the present. And in a sense, I think that's part of the memorial is kind of, you know, out of this horrible event, celebrating life, and what better way to do that, I think, than by admiring the nature that we can see right now. So once again, you can check out that video for that history, but today we're gonna just get into the park, and before we even enter the park, really, at Women's Gate here, we can see yellow and purple and even an orange flower there. And of course, all the green stems of these plants bringing some color to the park after this long winter. And just a short walk into the park, we can see that some of the deciduous trees are already displaying green. So as we're walking by, we already get the sense that spring is very much here. It's been spring for a few weeks technically, but I think right now you really get the feeling as you're walking around. And right away, we get into Strawberry Fields. Now, this entire 2.5 acre parcel of land is Strawberry Fields, but I think when I say that name, most people think of this spot right here specifically, which is the Imagine mosaic and the benches that surround it. It almost creates this little plaza. And I really like the design of this spot because, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't really know of any other spaces in the park where there are 3 rows of benches all facing each other. And while this is a quiet zone, I think it's appropriate to say this does create kind of a social atmosphere, maybe a quieter social atmosphere. But I think they did a great job intentionally designing this area to kind of instruct visitors of, you know, if you want to maybe chat and read, you can do that here. And then there are other places that are a little quieter. And you also are always going to run into someone playing some music here. Maybe he's playing a Beatles song as we're walking by on his guitar. And then we can see the black and white mosaic donated from artists in Naples, Italy. And you might be asking, what is the connection to Naples, Italy? Why did they choose this? Well, the short answer is that there were a ton of gifts proposed. Yoko Ono had published a letter in the New York Times, I believe, calling for basically plants and rocks and gifts from around the world to come into this garden. And basically they just ended up choosing this one because it is public space. And so there ended up being, you know, a collaboration between various city agencies and the Central Park Conservancy and Yoko Ono to kind of, you know, make sure this was a democratic process and tie it into the rest of the restoration in Central Park that was going on. So I did talk about that a lot in my past video, but just a few points of interest that you may not know that I didn't know that I researched by looking up a New York Times article published in October 1985, the day that this was dedicated. So a few points that you might find interesting if you might not have known. Originally, this mosaic was proposed to be at 40 feet in diameter, so it was just scaled back to 10 feet in diameter, I think just to take up less of the landscape. And then there were other gifts proposed, and some of the other ones that I thought were interesting that were not approved by the Landmarks Preservation Commission were this tile bench from Morocco, a fountain from France, and even a totem pole from the Aleutian Islands. So once again, they decided to, you know, I think tie in this vision of this garden of peace with a kind of Olmstedian landscape. And I think the result was good because it's one of the most popular places to visit in the park, so they must have done something right. And the last interesting tidbit I learned is that there were actually counter proposals in the city council to, instead of making this a memorial to John Lennon, some politicians had even proposed making this a memorial to Bing Crosby, who had died a few years before. So that was a fun trivia fact that I did not know. But we'll move past the mosaic here and just admire some nature. This is a time of year where I'm excited by even just bushes, like even shrubs that are pretty unspectacular really catch my eye. It's just so nice to see some greenery after the winter. And you can see families out here enjoying this lawn on a nice picnic. This is Japanese barberry. And once again, I guess it's just a green shrub, but I think it looks so nice. And you need these kind of green plants to help the more colorful plants pop, like these daffodils that are springing up all over the place, and these blue squills here. There's also these Japanese quince flowers popping out right now, adding some strawberry colors to strawberry fields. And in this area, you'll see mostly people just passively using the landscape, reading, picnicking, or even someone who's brave enough to sunbathe in March. So the design of the landscape is definitely conducive to that. We saw the kind of formal benches around the mosaic. I would describe this as sort of a pastoral landscape, and there's even some elements of the picturesque or the woodland landscapes here as well. So it kind of ties together all three sorts of landscapes in Central Park. And at this point, I wanted to launch a poll. You'll see it pop up on your screen right now, just to celebrate spring. And I wanted to ask you all, what is your favorite thing to do in the park in the spring, whether you go to Central Park or you have another outdoor space you use where you live? I had mentioned a couple. If you have another activity you prefer, you can drop that in the comment section if you'd like to share. And I also recognize that we probably have some visitors in the Southern Hemisphere as well. So I know it's autumn for you and not spring. So I will share the results of that in a minute. And I will move forward just to give everyone a chance to answer that. And you can see signage around here too. So it's just important to keep in mind the rules of the different landscapes to make sure you're considerate about every visitor and of course the landscape itself. So just always look out for that when you're using the landscape. We have gone down this slope here to the bottom of this little meadow. And we'll see another beautiful tree here, this magnolia tree that almost looks like it has balls of cotton coming out of the top of it. And this is the Yuan Magnolia. So right now it's got these flowers that haven't fully bloomed yet, these pink and white flowers that it almost looks like cotton balls or like a bunch of birds perched in this tree from afar. But when you get closer, you can see these are going to be really beautiful. And this is the time of year where the park is different every day you come. So if you are able to come, it's going to look different than it does in this picture that we're looking at right now, which is, I think, one of the best reasons to come to the park as often as possible if you can. And through that magnolia tree, you can see just how busy the park is with bicyclists and joggers and walkers, and even a jazz band that's filling the air with nice sounds as we walk by. And I did not forget about the poll. I'll end that now and share the results. I love so many people just love walking. The majority of people chose walking. I love it too. It's a great way to get some exercise and just enjoy the park landscape. And flowers and bird watching, not so many picnickers. I did see that there are some visitors from the Southern Hemisphere, so welcome wherever you're tuning in from. Now moving forward, we'll see the landscape from the east here, and you get a sense of the landscape and how close it is to the Upper West Side with these buildings here. That's the Majestic. That's the name of that Art Deco residential building there. And you can see the same vantage point from back in August. So we're going to time travel back in time, and we're going to see how lush and green this area will become in just a few months. So come to the park and witness this transformation if you can. And some more colors in the landscape as well. These Didier tulips add some more red and white to the landscape. And I love tulips and daffodils and all these other flowers, these bulbous flowers that, you know, it represents to me volunteers or staff members who back in autumn, you know, we're kneeling down in the cold ground, planting some bulbs in the ground. If you've ever done it, it's a pretty tough activity. And It's something they did for our enjoyment, people's enjoyment down the line in the future. And I think that's a key aspect of the spirit of a public park. And so we'll wrap back around to the Imagine Mosaic. We did a little loop here, and you can see once again, there are people enjoying the landscape, and we'll travel back. Again, I'm relying on this time travel gimmick heavily, but I think it's so cool to see how the landscape transforms. And you can see it here, just the way that the leaves create a totally different feeling of this being a little more, I don't know, compact, or like a little more shielded from the urban environment. But the continuity here is that design instructs people intuitively how to use a landscape. And you can see that no matter the time of year, with the exception of maybe January, people like to sit out here and just kind of enjoy nature. And for the last part of this walk, we're going to head up to the northern meadow, which is a little less crowded. And as we're walking there, we look up into the tree and we see something. We're not sure what it is. It almost looks like, who knows, it could be a balloon stuck in the tree or something. But when we look closer, we'll make out a tail feather and what appears to be the body of a large bird. And I had actually met a bird watcher when I was walking around, and we had a little conversation. You know, I do a little bird watching, but he was a member of the Linnaean Society. So he was a real expert in birding, and he kept emphasizing to me, look up, just constantly look up and you'll see cool stuff. And lo and behold, we did see this bird, and we were gonna wait a few minutes patiently, and we will capture the bird flying off. You can see this red-tailed hawk's huge wingspan flying over us, and my finger blocking the lens. Even after waiting a few minutes, I still managed to mess up the shot a little bit, but I think you know, the bird itself salvages the image. And I got a few better shots here as well, and you can see it flying off towards the San Remo, this building here. So just look up and you'll see all sorts of cool stuff. In New York City, believe it or not, I mean, you can see all sorts of wildlife. This past winter, people saw many species of owls in the park, hawks and falcons. So just keep your eyes glued to, well, maybe not glued to the sky. Look around when you're walking around, but take a glance up when you get a chance. And so we saw that hawk right on this path here. And the final part of the walk, we're gonna take a sharp turn at the northern section of this teardrop-shaped landscape. And when we do that, you'll see this trail here. So you can go up this trail, and it actually affords you a pretty nice view of the park. You can see cyclists going by on the drive, and then you can see the lake in the background. And someone had asked a few weeks ago about boating, and I actually wasn't certain if boating was back, but I can say with some certainty now that it is back, and that's something you can do if you visit Central Park. And I'm going to do another one of these look backs in time, and you can see this in August as well. What's cool about this time of year, though, I think, is that, you know, it's nice and warm, nice to walk around, but all the leaves haven't come back yet. Have not come back yet, so you can see vantage points that you would miss out on in the summer. When I was here in August, I didn't have a picture of Bow Bridge because I couldn't see Bow Bridge. But now we can see this beautiful bridge in the background. And I don't come up here very often, but it's become one of my favorite areas in the park because you can act as a fly on the wall for all the activity going on in some of the busiest parts of the park while having a kind of quiet landscape to yourself. So it's a nice place to walk. And we're going to end over here on this trail. I invite you to keep walking if you'd like, you know, keep exploring the park if you can. And eventually it's going to look like this very soon. So please come and, you know, check out the transformations. Or if you're not in New York, you can check it out in your own backyard. Just, you know, take a deep breath and try to observe the nature around you despite your busy schedule. And we're going to be exploring the park every Wednesday, so please come back and you'll see this transformation week by week. And here you can see this final image I'll leave you with, which is this oak leaf hydrangea. You can see last year's leaf withering away here, and new life coming into the park. And I think that's the spirit I'm going into the next few months with. I'm very excited for the warm months, and I hope you are too, and I hope that you'll join us again. So thank you so much. We really, really appreciate your support just by coming and watching our videos. And if you'd like to keep learning, you can visit our website here, centralparknyc.org/mycentralpark. And once again, there's some more programming upcoming, so you can or coming up rather, and you can look out for those in the chat. Some ones I highlighted were the Cherry Blossoms Tour, virtual tour, and the Spring Tree Walk virtual walk that you'll see in the messages. So thanks so much for coming. We'll see you next week when Ryan leads a walk. And until then, stay safe and be well. Thank you.